I will now introduce our first panel, and as is typical with legislative hearings, the bill sponsors are recognized for 5 minutes each to discuss their bills. To testify on my own bill, I recognize myself for 5 minutes. I think it's important to give a bit of background related to H.R. 231. The Colorado River Basin covers 7 states: Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. In fact, Wyoming is the headwaters with the Green River. It also covers the Republic of Mexico. In the U.S., the basin provides water for irrigation of nearly 4.5 million acres of land, municipal water supply to about 40 million people, and it supports hydropower facilities that can generate more than 4,200 megawatts of electricity. Within the basin, there are 7 national wildlife refuges and 11 national park service units. In 2014, the Bureau of Reclamation, the River Basin states, and the river water users explored ideas that could mitigate the impacts of the ongoing drought in the basin. One idea was the System Conservation Pilot Program, or SCPP, a 4-year pilot program designed to explore solutions to address declining water levels in Lake Mead and Lake Powell and the potential for long-term drought in the upper Colorado River Basin. The program implemented and tested on-the-ground voluntary water conservation opportunities that may help manage ongoing record drought conditions in the basin. The SCPP originally concluded in 2018. From 2015 to 2017, the Upper Basin SCPP funded 45 projects for a consumptive use reduction of approximately 22,000 acre-feet at a total cost of $4.5 million. In 2022, this program was reauthorized until September 30th, 2024. H.R. 231 would extend the program's funding authorization until September 30th, 2026, and require the Secretary of Interior to report to Congress on the continued effectiveness of the program by September 30th, 2027. The SCPP allows the Secretary to provide grants to public entities for water conservation pilot projects if the entity uses water from the Colorado River Basin for municipal purposes, and for new water conservation agreements, or for renewing or implementing water conservation agreements. This is a good bill, and I urge its passage. Mr. Thane, in your testimony, you talk about your own experience with the Upper Colorado River System Conservation Pilot Program. Given the current water challenges on that river and in that system, if this program were not to be reauthorized, how challenging would it be to access other federal opportunities?
Well, I don't know that I can speak exactly what it would. It is challenging in the economic terms of being able to conserve water. The infrastructure you have is we spend a lot of money to put down to utilize the water and efficiently do it. But as far as conservation, it's difficult to see much incentive to do so. I don't know that I can speak to how it would affect others. Certainly others that are used for conservation seems kind of counter to me to what we're trying to do to conserve water sometimes, although using water efficiently is definitely what we need to do. Utilizing it and wanting to utilizing it is the goal. Else the idea of they'll find somebody else for it, or there's scarcity, they'll give it to somebody else who they feel is more. So I don't know that I can speak to how it would affect others' programs, but certainly conservation won't be as much on the table or any incentive to do it.
Well, this is definitely a program that's helped your operation.
Oh,
correct?
Definitely. And there's a benefit to fallowing anyway, and that was known. But just the economic costs of following those conservation plans when there's such scarcity and such demand for it had little interest.
So at the end of your written testimony, you discussed the idea of Congress working on a more long-term solution to eventually replace the pilot program. Can you expound upon what that program would look like and how building more flexibility into a long-term solution would benefit farmers like you?
Well, I think one thing that we're tied to is the state has each of the Colorado Compact, how much they get. and having the states be able to show conservation and allow them to have that demand management gives, protects their water share. I think this program allows you to hold that in place, at the same time conserve water for downstream. The second part of your question.
So what I was curious about is whether you had any other ideas of how to build flexibility into the system for a long-term solution to benefit our farmers.
Yeah, as long as it's measurable and accountable and the water that we're using is efficient, I think it's going to be important that that's recognized in conjunction with the conservation efforts. I think everybody's worried they're going to take their water. I think there's a big concern that that's going to happen. So as long as farmers are doing their part, that they're offered protection and the flexibility to do it in a rotational program where you can see the benefits of it without the worry of the loss or the lack of access to it.
Well, thank you for that information. And Ms. Toombs, in your testimony, you mentioned that commercial undersea cables are important to national security. Could you please expand on how important these technologies are both domestically and globally?
Yes, certainly. As mentioned,
Please turn on your microphone.
apologize for that. Yes, certainly. As mentioned earlier, and I'll just reiterate it, submarine cables really provide the backbone of the internet. I find that when I talk to people, they're surprised that that's actually where the internet comes from, if you want to call it that. They think it's satellite communications, and it really isn't. This is a submarine cable or a piece of a submarine cable, and they're just hiding in plain sight. And they do provide us with secure and fast communications domestically, intercontinentally, and globally.
So I'm going to go on to Mr. Hipke real quickly here. You state in your testimony that the BLM's implementation of the Aquifer Recharge Flexibility Act has made it harder to implement and manage aquifer activities in your area. How would Congressman Fulcher's legislation clarify existing law, and how would it help Idaho the Water Resources Board more effectively manage its resources?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. To give you an idea, to get an easement in the past, it's taken me approximately 2 years, to do that. And for those that don't know, if you happen to see the news last summer, the ESP went through a curtailment or potential curtailment last spring, which was obviously a really big deal. That would have, if we had to move forward with that, would have curtailed a large portion of farmland. And the reason I bring that up is the recharge program's working, we just need to do more. And so every year that we don't have the capacity to do excess water, the aquifer is losing approximately, to get it in balance, we need to put in about 600,000 acre feet. And so currently the program's only doing about 250. On a really dry year, we can only do less than half of that. So we have to be prepared on those wet years to be able to put that water in the ground, and we don't know when those are going to happen. So every year we don't have that in place presents a problem.
Okay, thank you for your testimony.